Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey, and we have guest host with us, Jamie Wadley. This is Inside Exec. It's part 2 of our discussion with Aneace Haddad, and we're going to talk today, or hear today, about changes to our brain as we age that reflect, or should reflect, in the way that we manage and carry out our tasks. Stopping being fixers and instead creating an environment where people can be the fixers and work in conjunction with us.
I love the changes that happen in midlife. So the book that was published a year ago, The Eagle that Drank Hummingbird Nectar that you mentioned earlier, that's a fictionalized account of my transformation at 50, just after I sold my company in France.
Okay.
I have a new book coming out in January, February, that really focuses on that period of life and the changes.
Okay.
And I talk about 3 winds of change that happen at midlife that create an ideal environment for leadership transformation. One of them is physiological. So our bodies are not working the same way as they used to.
I hear you.
But we also start to have a sense of living much longer lives than in the past. We grew up with the idea of retiring at 65 and you're done. And now there's a creeping realization that it's actually, I may have a few more decades of active life beyond that. The second wind of change is neurological, and that one is fascinating, where at midlife, our brains, the 2 hemispheres start connecting in a deeper way. So we may forget where we put our keys or our phone or something, but then we're connecting dots in a much better way than we ever did in the past because our brains are functioning differently. So there's a huge amount of research now on that. The third wind of change is parental, because our kids are growing up, they've left home. The identity that we had as parents is going away and it's changing. So all of these things together create a really wonderful environment for transformation at that age. I think this is all exacerbated by these things of remote work and COVID and the global stuff going on, the complexity. I think it's quite beautiful, all these changes. And it really forces us to just kind of let go and let's just be more human and lean into these transformations that are happening.
I want to go into that area of the 3 levels of letting go and avoiding being a courage vampire. So tell us what a courage vampire is, first of all, and then you can tell us how to let go.
So that was my own personal crucible, one of my crucibles. The story was on a ropes course. It was a leadership program. You know, those things you go up in the trees and you have the harness and everything. And there was part of the exercise that required being up with a partner, and then one of you is supposed to put a blindfold on. So the facilitator had me put the blindfold on, and I was partnered with a young lady who was scared of heights, and she was petrified. She didn't know how to move forward. We got up to the top, and I saw there was a rickety bridge ahead. You're supposed to go across with pieces of wood missing and stuff. I was told to put the blindfold on. And so presumably I was supposed to let myself be led by my partner. And she froze and she didn't want to move forward. So I tried to encourage her. And then my type A personality kicked in. And I said, okay, no worries. I'll keep the blindfold on. You get behind me, hold on to my harness, and I'll pull you across. I'll just feel my way. So it's like, I can do it. I can get through anything. And I did. And so I got to the other side, took the blindfold off. I was proud. I had gotten across. People down below were clapping. I can still remember the facilitator. She looked furious. And I got down, came down to the ground, and she said, "What the hell was that?" I said, "I got the job done. I got us both across." And she said, "You deprived your partner the opportunity to find her own courage. You wasted the opportunity for you to truly empower someone else." And it just hit so hard because I always thought of myself as empowering and trusting and all that. But I realized that I was empowering and trusting to people that had skills that I didn't have and that were able to move forward. And as soon as somebody didn't have a skill, I would jump in there and fill the breach.
Yep.
So what came to me was that I was sucking courage from others because I wasn't allowing their courage to emerge.
Okay.
Is it also aligned with being vulnerable in terms of making a mistake and owning it? And so just saying in those situations, saying for the other person, saying, I can do this much, but I can do no more. That level of self-judgment as well as judgment of others that I think sometimes holds people back in those situations.
I think it's more a question of fundamentally trusting another human being to be able to find the courage, even if they're not expressing it, if they're not demonstrating it right now. Because could I get across on my, yeah, I did. But that wasn't the point. The point is really believing that the other person has within them a spark of something that will come out.
Yes.
If and when. So I use that tremendously in my coaching and when I'm facilitating. There are moments when things look like they're really going bad. And start going, okay, I do need to jump in and get things moving in the right direction. And then it's like, okay, no, let me hold myself back and trust that they'll find it. And then these are situations where they're blaming external factors, they're blaming the board, they're blaming the facilitator in the room.
Sure.
But those are turning moments where you find that ability to trust that it'll come out, and then you just hold that space, and then it does emerge.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception by a lot of people that courage is a desirable experience, but in my experience, it's always bloody horrible, actually. And it's great when it's done, but it's a terrible thing to go through at the time.
Yeah.
So I could see why you'd want to step into the breach. I must admit I'm guilty of that as well. I'll think I'm doing the right thing when it's really me not trusting people around me.
It's very human.
It is, incredibly so.
I think that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the transformation at midlife. Our value when we're younger is stepping into the breach and fixing those issues and getting it done, having the answers and moving forward. I think our value changes later in life where our value becomes creating an environment where others can do that.
Yes.
So more like a coach. You become the coach and the mentor rather than the player environment. In your work, are you seeing the same things reoccur, the same problems surfacing, the same issues over all this time?
Yeah, I see many themes that come up. It's always different. It's like snowflakes. Every single team, every single leader has something different going on. But they're very similar themes, and that's why I'm so excited about this midlife thing, because they're all, the people I work with are all in that phase.
In that phase.
They're all going through these similar things, and they're suffering with them in similar ways. I see senior executives whose children are leaving, and they are feeling resentful of the people around them for dragging them away from their homes and stuff and not being able to spend time. I have to spend time with you idiots when I should be spending time with my daughter who's going off to college and she'll never live at home again. And once it comes up like that, people go, okay, that's kind of dumb. I don't want to be thinking like that. But it's amazingly common. So there are some themes like that. They come up in different ways. And after a while, you can start to see them in a...
But it's still about change. So it's still about this situation that I was comfortable in and that I knew how to handle all the things that aggravated me. Now there's a different dynamic. Yeah. And I have to reassess where I fit in this dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm interested, obviously, you've gone through it in terms of your own personal growth and change. Can you look into the future and see that there will be another period of time where, because we're living longer and because we don't necessarily want to retire at a certain age or at a certain point, do you think there'll be a third transition?
Oh, I don't even know what numbers of transitions there'll be.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I have grown kids from my prior marriage. My wife, I mentioned earlier, is from Australia, from Sydney. So I have 2 stepchildren, teenagers. My kids are older than that. So I've been around teenagers for many years, still don't understand anything about them. And
you must have been one once yourself.
I was one myself. I don't understand him at all. With my son, I remember a moment here in Singapore. We were going to a parent teachers thing at his school, and we passed by a classroom, and there was a bulletin board, and it said, "Who will I be at 100?" And the kids had put up things there, and some of them are like, okay, I'm going to be a rock star. Somebody else says, I'm going to be dead. It's kids putting stuff up. It really struck me that question, which I now use in coaching, that question kind of loosens the brain to look at things in a long perspective. Who will I be at 100? The answer doesn't really matter. It's the question that's important. And then things like, what's my purpose in life, that gets people really like, what's my purpose? I haven't figured out my purpose yet. I'm 50 years old, still haven't figured it out. It becomes kind of a moot issue, because your purpose might be like, for the next 3 years, what's my purpose? Or what's my purpose this week or the next 5 years? So it becomes a little lighter and easier, and you can let go, and you can flow with it, have multiple purposes of, I don't know how many rebirths. And
do you see that as organizational as well? So are organizations going to go through those sorts of changes as well?
Yeah.
Externally driven or internally driven?
Yep, all of it. So I love that exercise. Who will I be at 100? There's a similar exercise that loosens things up before the who will I be at 100 is I am not this, I am not that, which comes from Eastern philosophies. Neti is a denying of I am not this, I am not that, but I don't use it in a spiritual way, use it in a label way. So you come up with all your labels, and then this applies for the organization as well. So labels are, I'm a man in Singapore, father, former CEO, American, yada, yada, yada. You come up with all of these labels, and then you start playing with them with air quotes. I am not this. And then your brain starts to go, well, actually you are, but okay, we've got the air quotes, so that means something a little different. And then you start seeing that you have a lot of preconceived beliefs about these labels. By loosening them up, it becomes possible to take on new labels. You look at companies, I mean, they're classics like Kodak, like any of the camera companies and early computer companies. When they get very, very strict and rigid on how they label themselves, they can't flow and change. So rebirths, how many rebirths? I don't know. Maybe they're rebirthing every month or so, or with every new client, there may be some form of a rebirth.
Let's have a break in this discussion with Aneace Haddad. I'm Kim Bailey. I'm joined by co-host Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec.